Hello, everyone. Thank you, all of you have been learning with us all summer in the summer Sanhedrin program. And right now, I'm going to do a brief video highlighting some of the points in the 11th chapter, Perek Aleph, the last parak of Sanhedrin. I'm not actually going to go through every Mishnah in its entirety. It seems to me that all of you have had the opportunity to be able to learn the Mishnah by yourselves. But I want to point out a few specific points that I think are worth mentioning and taking note of. This parak is called Elohim Nechnakin, and it deals with the final of the four misos that have been discussed in Sanhedrin, the four types of death penalty, and that is that of chenek. Chenek means strangulation. Now, it's worth noting that whenever the Torah uses the word misa, meaning most you must, you shall surely die, the Chazal say, Stam misa ha'amura b'Torah is chenek. Kol misa ha'amura b'Torah stam ein ela chenek. Whenever the Torah just says he shall die, it means chenek. That's just worth noting. Now the Mishnah here actually lists only a few types of people, or averos, which result in chenek. One is maka aviv imo, someone who strikes their father or mother, and it means that they strike them to the point that they actually get a chabura, a wound, which causes loss of blood. Gonei nefesh miYisrael, someone who kidnaps. Zakein mamre al pi beitin. A zakein mamre, this is something that's worth noting, is a chacham mechachmei Yisrael, a wise person who rules against the ruling of the central basin in Yerushalayim and instructs people to disobey that central basin. Navi Sheker is a false prophet. Mitnabeh b'shem avodah zara is someone who makes a prophecy in the name of avodah zara. V'habal esherish, someone who has relations with a married woman. Please note that while many other illicit relations in halacha result in the death penalty of sreifa, as we saw in Yohanan Nisrafin, specifically one who has relations with a married woman gets the death penalty of chenek. And then finally, zomeh bat kohen uboala. That means as follows: a bat kohen who has an affair after whom is married and has an affair gets the punishment of sreifa. Nevertheless, the person she has the affair with, the man involved in the affair, does not get sreifa. They get chenek instead. Similarly, Eden Zomimin, which means witnesses who testify that a woman who was the daughter of a Kohen had an affair, and then other witnesses come and testify that those witnesses could not have actually seen the affair because they were elsewhere. That's called Edom Zomimin. Usually the rule is Edom Zomimin receive the same punishment that they tried to give to the people they were testifying about, but in this specific case, although, again, the Bas Kohen herself gets sreifa, they get chenek. Okay. The rest of the Mishnayot essentially deal with all of these categories and go into more specific detail. I wanted to just give a brief overview of Mishnah Beis, which deals with Zakein Mamre. As mentioned, Zakein Mamre is someone who argues against the central rabbinic court in Yerushalayim. However, it's important to note that it's very specific conditions in which a Zakein Mamre will get the death penalty for arguing with that central rabbinic court. Number one, it has to be. So let's just read the Mishnah for a second. The Mishnah describes three different courts that were in Yerushalayim. One which stood at the entrance to the Temple Mount, one which stood at the entrance to the Azara, which is the courtyard of the temple, and one which stood at the Lishkat HaGazit, which was a chamber which was in this courtyard. Some of it was inside the actual structure of the temple, and some of it was outside. So the first, if you had a rule, an opinion, you would go to the first basin, and you would say, I have the following tradition, and you ask them, and they say, don't have that tradition. Then you go to the next basin, which is at the entrance to the Azara, and the same thing occurs. If afterward you go to the Lishkat HaGazeh, which is the central rabbinic court, the basin actually sits right at the entrance to the temple, and they give a ruling which you disagree with, and nevertheless you still go and instruct someone else to act in a way which contradicts the ruling of that central basin in the Lishkat HaGazeh, that is when you become a Zaken Mamre. So it's not simply that you think they're wrong. You have to actually instruct someone to disobey their ruling. And also the Mishnah mentions that it has to be specifically someone who is a Magia Lehora, meaning someone who actually received Smicha already, a rabbinic ordination, the real rabbinic ordination, not simply a Talmud, someone who is still studying to receive rabbinic ordination. Okay. I wanted to mention a few more points here. If you look at Mishnah Hey, skipping Mishnah Gimel Dal, again, responsible for those, but those go into some more detail about what a Zaken Mamre is. It's worth noting that a Navi Sheker is not, has also specific guidelines. So a Navi Sheker is someone who gives a prophecy which is a lie. And that is the type of person who gets killed by the basin. However, the Mishnah says there are other types of quote-unquote prophets who aren't doing their job, but they don't get killed bidei adam. They're not killed by an actual human basin, such as someone who gets a nevuah and refuses to tell it, and someone who disobeys a prophet. So disobeying a prophet doesn't warrant the death penalty in a court. However, Hashem gives the death penalty bidei shemayim. If you look at Mishnah Vav, it talks about not just someone who prophesies falsely, but someone who prophesies in the name of Avodah Zarah, someone who gives a prophecy in the name of an idol, another god. And the Mishnah makes it clear something interesting, which is that when we talk about Navi Sheker, it has to be a false prophecy. However, when we talk about a nevuah in the name of Avodah Zarah, in the name of an idol or another god, even if it's true, as long as it's in the name of another god, it's still considered a misnave v'shem avodah zarah, and therefore you are killed. So the Mishnah says, if you say, this is what, let's say Zeus, the god Zeus says, and you say the god Zeus declares that it is forbidden to eat chametz on Pesach, although it is forbidden to eat chametz on Pesach, since you recited the prophecy in the name of Zeus, that would be avodah zarah. So those are the points that I wanted to sort of clarify on these Mishnayot. Again, thank you so much for learning with us. I hope you enjoyed the learning. Really kol kavod for all the time that you've put in, and have a wonderful rest of your summers.